Hello everyone and welcome! I'm Anibius and this is Everspace. This is a game from Rockfish Games, who approached me with the Steam key and said if you would like to try our game, which is in early access, please do so. And if you would like to make a video or two or more, feel free to do that as well. So here we are, I've tried the game and now I'm making a video because I actually think it's well worth your while to take a look at this. It's not the same exact kind of game that we've been playing in the last little while. There is no building in this game. This is a space adventure roguelike kind of game. It's got some familiar elements to some other games, but I'll leave it up to you guys to pick out what those might be. It is early access, and when you first load up the game currently, it has just a bit of a reminder. More stuff will be added, more enemies, more structures, more ships that you can fly. Story elements will be added. There's already some in very, very small quantity in the game already, but more will be added. And the names and icons for equipment are subject to change, and of course there may or may not be some bugs that you'll encounter along the way. I haven't encountered any bugs yet, which is not to say that they don't exist. It's just that they weren't of the type that I could identify as a bug. So I mean, very polished up to this point, and I find it's really fun. This is the kind of game where you can play for 10 or 15 minutes if that's all you have time for, and feel like you were entertained for that time. Or you can play for longer, which is definitely an option as well. The whole idea is that you've got your spaceship and you go through from one sector to the next, fighting things, gathering things, crafting things, doing maybe a little bit of scheming, making a lot of decisions about where you're going to go and why. And when you're done, usually because your ship got destroyed, you go back to the hangar, you're recloned, you get a new ship, and you have the option, based on what you got in the last run, to upgrade this new ship of yours, which is very similar to the last ship that you had, in a way that's permanent, using the perk system. As you're in a run, you earn credits, and the credits are spent on perks that provide permanent upgrades to that ship that persist from one run to the next. So from one run to the next, you won't necessarily notice a big difference with the perks, but over time, once you've applied a number of these, you definitely start to notice that things are a little bit different than they were 10 runs ago, or whatever the span happens to be. So there's that element of permanent progression, and also you can pick up blueprints from one run to the next, and they stay with you. And the blueprints make it so that when you're on your next run, and every run thereafter, you can gather specific materials and make specific kinds of equipment and weapons to equip to your ship and use, which gives you a little bit more control than just relying on the arbitrary drops from containers and destroyed ships. So that's kind of a neat thing, is that if you've got a particular kind of weapon that you really like and you get the blueprint for that weapon, you can make that blueprint, or make that weapon from the blueprint, whenever you've got the materials, and then it's there, it's yours for the rest of the run. At the end of the run, the equipment that you made is destroyed, but the blueprint stays with you. So that's the permanent progression. Then there's the temporary stuff. I keep talking about all the things that are yours until you're destroyed. It's not just upgrades to your ship and things that you make from blueprints that you can get on each run. You get weapons that you can choose from and swap out with your current weapons that you start the run with. You get different kinds of equipment, different kinds of missiles, different kinds of consumables, all these different things that give you the opportunity to try a different play style. And if you don't like it, you can scrap the stuff that you don't want and keep what you've got. It's a pretty straightforward system. There are 3 factions currently in the game that you will encounter on a very regular basis. The first is a neutral sort of faction, the G&B faction. I don't remember what G&B stands for, but it's not necessarily important, I don't think, at this point. They're the guys who will leave you alone unless you attack them or you try to steal from them. And it's easy as accidentally bumping into one of their storage crates, and all of a sudden they're all after you. It's kind of a terrifying thing to have happen but it will happen occasionally from time to time. The thing is, you can bait enemy ships towards a small G&B fighter swarm, and they'll help you most of the time. You can come upon a G&B fighter swarm fighting an enemy fighter swarm, and when you arrive there, by the time you get close enough to do anything, all that's left is loot for you to pick up, and that's kind of a cool thing as well. So there's benefits to leaving these guys alone and just letting them do what they're going to do. But then you see one of their freighters and you think, I wonder what it would take for me to blow that up and not get killed in the process. There's sort of a scheming element to this whole thing, because I don't know these guys. For all I know, they're just waiting for an opportunity to blow me up. But right now they're busy. Who knows? They're not allies, they're just neutral, so to speak. So there's that element as well. There's definitely the scheming aspect. And what are you going to do with these neutral guys? Do you keep them around in case they're helpful, or do you take what they've got and run screaming into the night, hoping that they can't catch you? The two enemy factions are the outlaw faction, they're sort of like the arbitrary sort of bandits. They're just there. I don't know how much of a story is going to be built around them, but they just have that feeling about them that they're just kind of bad guys who will shoot at anyone given the opportunity to try and take what they have. And then you have the Okar faction, which seems like they're going to be central to the main story of the game. And they appear from time to time in areas that you happen to be in, just as part of the way things are set up. But one thing that you can count on is if you spend too long in a given sector, they will show up in interceptors, which are very fast. They've got a lot of firepower, and they're very beefy. They're difficult to destroy. You can destroy them. They're just very difficult. You'll use a lot of resources, particularly in the missiles category, to destroy them before they can destroy you, especially before your ship is really filled out with all of the perks that make you more survivable. So there's that element of you only have a certain amount of time here to explore, to gather, to exploit the resources that are available to you before you have to jump to the next sector, because if you don't make the decision to jump, the game will make the decision for you, either force you to jump or destroy you. That's kind of the thing. So there's always that persistent element in the background to keep in mind. And from there, it's basically just a matter of going from sector to sector, getting as much as you can, getting as powerful as you can so that you can continue to gather resources, win fights, get blueprints, get credits, all these other things. And then eventually you end up back in the hangar, do the upgrades, move on to the next run, and continue. The whole roguelike sort of philosophy is that, yes, you are starting from the beginning again, but it's procedurally generated, so everything is going to be a little bit different. And the basic mechanics that you play from one run to the next are enjoyable enough that it doesn't really feel boring. There's enough diversity in the different kinds of weapons that you can get, that you can kind of mix things up a little bit from time to time. There's enough of a mystery in terms of the containers. What do I get from that one? What do I get from that one? And of course, the credits is sort of that sure thing. You get some. It maybe isn't a lot from this run, but it'll give you a couple of upgrades that will make you stronger in the long run than if you had not got those credits and made those upgrades. And then you just play the game. It's simple, straightforward. It doesn't have a vast amount of depth yet, because it's early access. It is sort of stripped down, limited number of enemies, limited number of ships that you have access to. But already, I've done a certain number of runs. I think I'm coming close to 40 runs now, and I haven't really felt like I've jumped into a sector that I've visited before, because it's just being repeated to such an extent that everything feels similar. I recognize assets from one sector to the next, but they're put together in such a way that it just doesn't feel like it's the same as it was the previous time. It's a gorgeous game for what it is. It's not vast open world roaming. It's just sort of one sector that you fly around in. It's a limited amount of space that you have to work with, and then you move on to the next sector and keep going. So next episode, probably the only episode that I'll do after this one. So I think we'll do one episode that's just doing a run that takes maybe in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 minutes. We'll see how it goes. So you can see exactly what it looks like from start to finish, how it all comes together, the exploring, the looking around, the trying to find the things that you want to find and not die in the process, and then move on to the next area and do it all over again. If you want to be notified about that video, Of course, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.
Multiple hostiles incoming.
These things are so annoying. So many of them.
Do something about these drones.